This is Divine Lifestyles with Tara Magalski. What is a divine lifestyle? Passion, purpose, and living in alignment with your truth. Thanks for tuning into Divine Lifestyles, transforming your life with purpose. We share stories of transformation to feed your spirit, mind, and body. I'm your host, Tara Magalski, and today's guest is the amazingly inspirational Hal Elrod. Now, Hal died at the age of 20. He was hit head-on by a drunk driver, and he died for 6 minutes, broke 11 bones, and was told by doctors that he would never walk again. Not only did he walk, he went on to become an ultra-marathon runner, running 52 consecutive miles in one day. He is a Hall of Fame business achiever, an international keynote speaker, and he's well known for his #1 best-selling book that is absolutely amazing that I read 4 times. It is called The Miracle Morning, The Not So Obvious Secret to Guaranteed to Transform Your Life Before 8 a.m. Thank you, Hal, for being my guest today. I know that was a mouthful, but you have achieved so much. And not to mention, you had 705-star reviews on Amazon.
Yeah.
I'm praising you. I'm praising you right now.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Tara, and thank you for all the kind words. I could listen to you all day now.
I know. I'm great for your ego, right? No, yeah. I literally...
Makes you feel good.
Hal and I met at Archangel back in February, and after I heard him speak, I went up to him right away, and I had to pick his brain a little bit, and I just said, I can't wait to read your book, which I did immediately. Like I said, I read it like 4 times now, and wow. It's been really wonderful for me, so I'm super excited. So thank you again for being my guest today.
Yeah, it's an honor. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get right into it because your book covers so much. And, as we go, you can tell me, you can just let me know if you want to talk about that or if you want to tell people to read the book. So
Both. Yeah, both.
Both. So in his book, he talks a lot about his accident, and that's something that I just want to start off with. And I want to start off with your life after death experience when you were hit by that car.
Yeah, when I was 20 years old, I was on top of the world, figuratively speaking. I had started a position in sales a year and a half before, and I broke all these company records. So I was making more money than I ever imagined I'd be making it, at 19, 20 years old. I mean, weekly paycheck, sometimes $3,000, $4,000 in a week. And then, of course, I would get lazy for a few weeks because that was enough to spend, and then I would have to work again. But anyway, so I was one of the top salespeople for the company, and as a result, they asked me to speak at almost every event that we had. So I would give these motivational speeches or kind of sales training speeches. And at age 20, my dream of being a keynote speaker, a motivational speaker, was kind of born because I enjoyed the speaking aspect of it. Driving home one night after giving a speech to about 50 sales reps, I was driving my brand new Ford Mustang. I had just bought it with my own money. It was kind of a real proud investment just weeks before. And driving home that night, I was hit head-on by a drunk driver at 80 miles an hour, and it sent my car spinning into oncoming traffic, and the car behind me crashed into my door at around 70 miles an hour and crushed the entire left side of my body. In fact, I think there's a picture. I don't know if you can see this, but that's me, and that's the car right after. And the car looks like it's crushed in half. Because the left side of it was really smashed into my body, and immediately the left side of my body was devastated. My femur broke in half, my pelvis broke in 3 places, my arm broke in 2 pieces, my elbow was shattered, I severed the nerve in my arm, punctured my lung, ruptured my spleen, almost completely lost this ear, this eye socket was destroyed. This is all made of titanium now. And then the ceiling buckled and it sliced my head open. And immediately, unable to withstand the pain, I was in a coma, thankfully, right? I'm very thankful for that. But I started bleeding. And an hour later, they finally had to use the jaws of life to get me out of the car. And when they did, I had lost so much blood that I died. And I was clinically dead for approximately 6 minutes on the side of the freeway while they worked on reviving me. And thankfully, they didn't give up, but they kept working. And 6 minutes later, I was brought back to life, rushed to the hospital in critical condition, and spent 6 days in a coma and came out of the coma to learn this devastating reality, right? I wake up and I'm in a hospital bed, and my ears sewn on in my head, and I'm hooked up to tubes, and my arms in a cast, and my legs in a cast, and I'm waking up having no idea how I got there. And essentially, I had to face that reality, and the doctor said I would probably never walk again. 3 weeks later, after telling my parents, look, the doctors might be experts in medicine, but they're not experts in me. Like, I'm focusing every day on walking again. I'm visualizing it. I'm praying about it. All of my energy is going into that possibility. And I told my parents, this is an important lesson. I said, if I never walk again, I'll accept that. I've completely accepted it. I'll be at peace with it. I won't be depressed or angry or sad or suicidal. I've completely accepted the worst case scenario, so it doesn't have power over me, and there's no fear. But I don't put my energy into the worst case scenario. It's such a good lesson for all of us. Accept the worst case scenario so you're at peace with whatever might go wrong, but you focus all your energy on what you want and see it, believe it, imagine it, and work towards it. And I went to therapy every day. And 3 weeks after the crash, my parents and I were sitting in the hospital. The doctors came in with routine x-rays, and they said, we have some good news. We don't know how to explain this, but Hal, your body is healing like rapidly, and we're going to let you take your first step tomorrow in therapy, right? So it went from never walking again to 3 weeks after the crash, I took my first step, and that was kind of it. I decided I wanted to eventually be that speaker, and now I had a real story to share. I wanted to write a book someday, and that was where my life kind of took a little bit of a turn in terms of my career and that sort of thing.
It's so amazing because I love to hear stories of miracles, and that's exactly what this was.
Sure.
It was a miracle that you were working towards. It's amazing. You wrote something in your book that I just want to read to you because I think it's really important for the listeners to hear. It says, as a result of choosing to be genuinely grateful for all I had, unconditionally accepting of all that I didn't, and accepting total responsibility for creating all that I wanted, this potentially devastating car accident ultimately became one of the best things that ever happened to me. I used my accident to fuel a triumphant comeback. I love that. I absolutely love that because I have a story I'll share in just a moment. But on that note, was there a moment for you, a moment or a series of moments that was the catalyst for you that led to the strength that you had to heal?
Yeah, well, part of it was, so this is one of my favorite kind of stories or anecdotes from that time. The doctors called my parents in one day, and this was about 2 weeks after the accident. So I was a week out of the coma, but it was a week before I was given the news that I could walk again. So I was still being told that I may never walk again. And the doctors called my parents in, and they sat them down, and they said, Mr. and Mrs. Elrod, we're concerned with Hal. They said physically he's doing great. His vitals are good, because I had flatlined twice more in my coma. So it's like, it was very touch and go just if I was going to survive. So they called him in. They said his vitals are doing great. He's been out of the coma for a week now. Physically he's good, but we're concerned that mentally and emotionally, we believe Hal is in denial. They said because every time we see him, every time we spend time with him, whether it's his doctors, his nurses, his therapists, his psychologists, Hal's always smiling and he's laughing and he's joking. And they said, that's not normal, right? Not for a 20-year-old young man that's being told he may never walk again, who has significant brain damage, whose body is scarred forever, right? That's not normal. So they said, we believe that he's in denial. We believe that he cannot accept his reality. And they said, we've seen this before. So he's checked out. Like he can't handle the reality. He can't handle the truth. So he's just in la la land, like everything's okay. And they said, we need you to talk to him and find out how he's really feeling. And so my dad came in, and I didn't know the conversation happened, but my dad sat down, and my dad's eyes were like, red. He was like, either he had been crying or was trying not to cry. And I could tell something was wrong. And I said, Dad, what's going on? And he said, Hal, I know that when your friends are here, you guys are laughing and joking and reminiscing. But he said, when you're at night by yourself, when the lights are out, when there's no distractions, or anytime you're alone and you're thinking about what happened to you, how are you processing this? Are you sad? Are you scared? Are you depressed? Are you angry? It's normal to feel these things, but it's important that you talk about them and that we work through them. Yes. And I could tell my dad was concerned, so I thought about it, and I really asked myself, am I sad, angry, depressed. And I looked at my dad. I said, Dad, I thought you knew me better than that. I said, remember, I lived my life by the 5-minute rule that I learned in my Cutco sales training. It says it's okay to be negative when things go wrong, but not for more than 5 minutes. Now, granted, it was much milder adversity that we were taught that for, right? Like a no sale or a rude customer, not being told you're never going to walk again. But the principle is universal and it's sound. And I told, I said, Dad, my 5 minutes is up. It's been 2 weeks. I can't change that I was in a car accident, but I get to choose whether or not I'm miserable and I'm wishing it didn't happen, or whether or not I completely accept it because I can't change it. So logically, there's no other choice but then to accept it and be at peace with it. And I said, Dad, I've already decided I'll be the happiest person you've ever seen in a wheelchair if that's the scenario. But my energy is going into making it the way I want it to be.
So do you think that strength just came from you just saying, I'm going, like from willpower? Or do you feel that you had a strong sense of faith? Or, where do you think that came from?
It's how do I put it? It's positive thinking, but I'm also a realist. Like, you can't just think positively, I think, and all of a sudden everything's fixed in your life. But what the positive thinking allows you to do is focus on the solutions rather than the problems. And what we focus on expands. So for me, I think it was simply strategy, meaning the 5-minute rule, or I don't know if you call it a strategy, but like the 5-minute rule is really what it was. What it was an understanding, and here's an important lesson for anybody listening or watching. Every negative emotion that we ever feel in our lives is self-created by our level of resistance to our reality. So in other words, it's to the degree that we wish something were different that can't be different because it already happened in the past. It happened 5 minutes ago, 5 days ago, 5 years ago. It already happened. You can't go back in time. But we go, gosh dang it, I wish that didn't happen. I'm so upset. I'm so angry. I wish she didn't do that to me. I wish I didn't crash my car. I wish this didn't happen. And what I realized is that every negative emotion is self-created, and therefore it's our choice whether or not we create it. And the secret to giving yourself freedom from emotional pain is to learn to accept all things that you can't change unconditionally, to not put any energy into wishing something were different. So intellectually, if you could, now I know everyone listening or watching goes, that's easier said than done, right? But the 5-minute rule, at first 5 minutes seemed like not enough time, right? I'm like, I need 5 days to be upset. Give me 5 days,
How
right?
about 5 months?
How about 5 months, right? Yeah, people are still suffering over things that happened in their childhood, right?
Right.
But you can't change the thing that happened once it happened, but you don't have to wish it didn't happen. You accept that it is what it is. I can't change it. And those 3 words, can't change it. I wore a wristband for years that said can't change it. And I'd hit traffic and I'd go, gosh damn it, I can't, I'm going to be late. And then I'd see my wrist and go, oh yeah.
Can't change it.
I can't change the speed of the cars in front of me. Why would I choose to suffer, be angry, frustrated, upset? I don't have to choose that. And I love the traffic metaphor, because I would realize I could turn up the radio, I could sit back, I could relax, I could smile, and I could enjoy the ride. And to me, that's the metaphor for life. Once you choose to accept the things that are out of your control that you can't change, you're able to enjoy the ride that is life and be grateful and be happy and be at peace. Doesn't mean you're happy that the thing happened, but you're at peace with it. And that's a lot more powerful, because happiness is an emotion.
Yeah.
You could be happiness 1 minute, sad the next. When you're at peace, that's rooted, it's grounded, and it's ever present. It doesn't go away. Well, Viktor Frankl, so in the book Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl.
Love that book.
So yeah, if for anyone that's not familiar, Viktor Frankl was a Nazi concentration camp survivor. And he was in a Nazi concentration camp thinking he would never see his family again, and he had a wife and a small child. Watching his friends be slaughtered every day, he's being beaten and tortured, and he decided, you know what? I'm going to make these the happiest days of my life. If I'm going out like this, to paraphrase, obviously, I'm going to choose to be happy. And the quote from Viktor Frankl that stuck with me from that book is he realized the last of man's given freedoms is to choose our own attitude in any given set of circumstances. And if Viktor Frankl could be happy in a concentration camp, being tortured, beaten, starved, thinking he'd never see his family again, what's your excuse? What's my excuse to not choose to be happy?
Exactly. And I just wanted to say what really, really, really struck me and hit very close to home, what you said in the book about using that as a present, a way to fuel your comeback. When I had lost my mother, I went through probably a year when she had passed of just being really depressed. And I had my aha moment as well during that time. It took me a little bit longer than you. But I said, you know what? I'm going to turn this around and make her proud. And I'm going to get up every day and hit my goals and do everything. And I use that as the fuel to get me to where I am today. Took a little bit longer, but I was able to find that little gem,
Yeah,
I was able to find that. So when in the book, when I read that, I said, oh, yes, I just wish I could have gotten there sooner.
Yeah.
If I would have known you then.
Well, they say everything happens for a reason, and that's why I feel it's my duty to share this message. And I've shared that. I call it the can't change it philosophy, right? To accept the things you can't change. I've shared that with tens of thousands of people around, the U.S. and Canada from speaking and that sort of thing. And I've had a few people, but one in particular, one girl sent me an email a week after I spoke to her, and she had "can't change it" tattooed permanently into her wrist. Oh, and she said yesterday, the day before she sent me the email, was the 10-year anniversary of her dad's death day. He died when she was 9. She's 19 now, and she had spent those 10 years depressed, on medication for depression and anxiety. She had tried to take her life, I think, twice. And she said since she heard that message, she thought it was because her dad died that she was upset. And that's what she blamed it on. She said after I talked to her, she realized it wasn't that he died. It was that I wasn't willing to accept and be at peace with the fact that he was gone. She said, I put my energy into wishing he was coming back and it wasn't fair, and she said it was the first week in 10 years that she was able to be happy, and she wanted a permanent reminder. And the crazy thing is when she sent me the picture of her wrist, you saw the "can't change it" tattoo over the scar where she had slit her wrist before.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So really profound. But I thought if those 3 words could help someone, you give someone freedom, 10 years of emotional pain, and she's within a moment of making that decision, she's free. It's amazing.
It's interesting that you say because they can't accept. Sometimes we get stuck in just being so angry. It's just so unfair. Yeah. So I noticed that that's where I was living for a while. I was living in the just so angry, how could that happen to me? Which is just probably another layer of not accepting it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it is. And that's the thing is what often we think is we don't think this consciously, but I think unconsciously a lot of people think that accepting something that they deem horrible or wrong somehow makes it okay, and they're not willing to make it okay because to them it's not okay. Exactly. But that's not how it works. Especially let's say somebody was abused as a child and they go, I'm not going to accept it. I didn't deserve it. I was a kid. It's like, whoa. Acceptance isn't about making it okay for them. It's not, you're not making it right. You're simply giving yourself freedom. That's it. That's all it's doing. Mm-hmm. And they somehow, and the thing is, the ironic thing is they think that accepting it somehow makes it right that person did that to them. But no, not accepting it is actually only hurting themselves when the other person's already off the hook. They don't even know that you're suffering. So when you accept it, it's actually the closest thing you can give yourself to making it right with what happened. Not that what happened was right, but that you're okay with the fact that you're at peace with it. It's just a gift to yourself. It has nothing to do with whether or not you're making it right or just or letting them off the hook. You're not letting them off the hook. You're letting yourself off the hook.
Totally. I mean, from my experiences, exactly. I can definitely resonate with that. But let's switch gears a little bit. I want to talk a little bit more because I just find your will so amazing. So after the car accident, how long was your recovery, and about how long did it take you to be able to walk again?
Yeah, so I took my first step. It was 3 weeks after the crash that they came in with the x-rays and said, you're going to walk tomorrow. I took my first step. 4 weeks after that, so 3 weeks to my first step, 4 more weeks, so 7 weeks total, the doctors came in and they said, we're going to let you out of the hospital. And they originally said I'd been there for a year, so it was like less than 2 months. I got out of the hospital. And then against doctor's orders and against my parents' wishes, there was a sales contest with my company when I got out of the hospital that was like just starting. And that was what I held the record for. So that was like, that was when I showed up, I would go and try to really achieve at a high level and compete with my peers. And so I had this epiphany. I was like, what if I went out and I actually showed up and I worked for this sales contest? Now, keep in mind, I could barely walk. I was on like a 4-prong cane. My nerve was severed, so my left hand, this was the extent of motion. I couldn't lift up my fingers. I couldn't move it. So I'm walking around like this. I'm limping. And I'm like, I want to go be one of the top salespeople for this contest. And the doctor said, absolutely not. And I finally, I just broke down to my parents one day, like crying. And I'm like, you guys, I need this. Like, it's not about, I know, because they kept saying, Hal, you don't need to make money or sell knives right now. Just focus on your recovery. And I finally got them to understand. I go, this is about my recovery. I'm not doing this because I need to sell knives or I need the recognition or whatever. I need to feel like, this is just, it's hard to explain, but it's like, I want to get back to normal. And if I do this, it'll show me that like the future is bright. I'm headed back in that direction. And so out of, I think, 500 sales reps at the event, I ended up taking 4th place in sales over that period. With my dad drove me to my appointments. He had to like help me. I only had one hand. He had to help me and stuff. But yeah. So that was it. And then I went on that year to be the number 6 rep in our company. Half the year without a car, I had to be driven to all of because I did an in-home appointment. So I had to catch rides with other sales reps and whatever. But yeah, I got back to the road to the recovery and eventually got back in the gym and exercising and all of that. But I mean, to this day, I still suffer from brain damage. My short-term memory is not so great. It was really bad back then. I've got, I can't straighten my arm quite all the way. I've got major, like, I don't know if you can see, but I've got some pretty major scarring, and my whole left side. I've got scarring like that all the way down to my leg. So, wow. But for the most part, I got off. I'm very blessed, and whenever I meet people that have like a relative that was in a car accident and that relative passed away or they're paralyzed, I'm always just, I just feel blessed, very much so.
Absolutely. Now, after many years of your success with Cutco, you wrote your very first book. Yes. Let's talk about that. I love the title, Taking Life Head On, How to Love the Life You Have While Creating the Life of Your Dreams. Oh my God. Tell me about this book.
Yeah. So it's funny. I always joke, like I'm an author, but I don't know if I'm a writer. And I know it's weird, but like if you would have asked any of my my high school English teachers, right, they would have been like, Hal write a book? I don't think so, right? He could never get an essay done on time. And even when he turned them in, they weren't that good, right? So it was never a dream. It was really something that both of my books that I've written, and I guess now I've got, 3, but the main 2 that I wrote, Taking Life Head On and The Miracle Morning, they were really written out of a sense of responsibility. Some of the stuff I just shared, like the Can't Change It philosophy, I had some friends and mentors say, Hal, you have a responsibility. Like, you have to share your story. You have to write a book. And it took me 6 years to write this book because I was just, I didn't know how to write a book. But I finally did it. I finally finished it. And now, it's, people, it's got great reviews. People really like it. 4.9 out of 5 stars on Amazon. So the first book, and it's really about my story. And then it's really, like, I basically taught one of the lessons, the Can't Change It philosophy. And in the book, I think there's like the 8 most powerful, life-changing lessons that I learned that people can apply to their life from my car accident. So that was the first book.
I love it.
And I will tell you this. I don't know if I'd call it a funny story, but my book came out. I promoted the heck. Like, I went on a national speaking tour. I was 25 years old, I think. And I did like radio and I did everything to try to get it out there. And it hit number 1 on Amazon in its category and number 6 overall. Right? So of every book on Amazon, it got as high as number 6 in the bestseller list. So I was all excited. My publisher, it was a very small publisher, they disappeared. They
stole. I was just going to ask you that.
Yeah. They stole all of my money and they went on the run, and I had to figure out how to republish my book and get the rights back, and I never heard from them again, never got the money back, and it was and it's funny, but it was an opportunity for me to apply the Can't Change It philosophy. And I called my dad. I said, Dad, you'll never believe this. He said, what? I said, remember I told you I haven't been able to get a hold of my publisher? He said, yeah. I said, apparently they're gone. A private investigator was hired by another one of their authors and went up and looked, and their house is empty, their office is empty, they're gone.
Wow.
And he went, and you could just tell, like, my dad's heart sank, and he's like, oh my God, Hal, I can't believe that. I'm so sorry. I said, Dad, no, what do you mean? This is great. He said, what are you talking about? This is great. I said, Dad, if there's anything I've learned, it's I'm put on this earth to take adversity and somehow turn it into lessons for other people to apply. And the only way for me to do that is to overcome it and turn it into positive as fast as I possibly can. I said, so this is an opportunity, as I see it, to create another extraordinary story of overcoming adversity. And my dad goes, you're so effing positive, Hal. I don't. And he goes, I think you're a little delusional. I said, all right, Dad, well, we'll see. So, it is what it is.
But it made your next book even better.
Yes.
Exactly.
And more adversity that led to the next book. Yeah.
So walk us through the next few years up to 2007 when you hit rock bottom.
Yeah. So let's see. The accident happened in 2000. Over the next 6 years, I got back to Cutco, and I hit 5 years, I guess. I hit 4 years. I hit Hall of Fame with Cutco in 2004. And that was kind of the pinnacle in terms of like, okay, I'm ready to do, I want to move on to something else. And I always wanted to be a keynote speaker. That was a dream of mine. I had always thought about writing this book, but in 5 years or whatever, I had not been able to get it written. I literally had written 6 pages in 6 years, something like that. I was on pace to finish it by the time I was 100, or something. And I hit Hall of Fame, and then I left Cutco and I launched into kind of 3 new careers. I finally wrote this book. I launched my speaking career, and my main business, I launched a coaching business. So I was coaching salespeople, entrepreneurs, business owners. I was doing success coaching, business coaching, and life coaching. And that's where I was making most of my income. I bought my first brand new house, which was, of course, a dream. You buy your first house. I bought my dream car a week later. I probably should have waited a little bit, but I figured, hey, I bought the house. I was responsible. Now I'll buy the car, right? And so life I was living my dream. I was coaching, speaking, and writing. I had a house. Everything was great. And I met the woman of my dreams, and we were living together. And 2008 hit. And as many Americans remember, and people around the world, felt like it was almost overnight. It happened really fast where, all of a sudden you start to hear news of the economy, and some things are looking not good. But my problem was at that time, I was an eternal optimist. And I always say there's a fine line between optimism and delusion, right? Mm-hmm. A very fine line. And I was the kind of guy that people were like, dude, what are you going to do about the economy? I'm like, I don't listen to the news. I don't pay attention to, right? Totally delusional. I'm positive, And that led to me losing over half of my clients, not being prepared. I lost over half my income. I couldn't pay my mortgage. I canceled my gym membership. I stopped exercising completely. I lost my house, and I got deeply depressed. I was physically, mentally, emotionally, and financially, I was at the lowest point in my life. I thought about suicide a lot. I would have never done it because my mom and dad had been through enough. But every day I thought, I just want to end things. I can't figure this out. I tried applying the can't change it philosophy, but I would go, okay, I can't change it. I'm at a low point, but then I would lose another client. Then I would lose another client. Mm-hmm. Then something else would go wrong. Then I would lose my house. And it's I couldn't accept things fast enough as they just kept getting worse. Yeah. And so as a result, it was a 6-month downward spiral into depression. And I was, physically looking in the mirror, I was totally out of shape. I was eating horribly. I was worst shape of my life. And I had really gotten big on living debt-free up until that point. I had paid off all my credit card debt. I was paid it off every month. And it really messed with me that psychologically I had to live on credit cards. I was $53,000. I went from 0 credit card debt to $53,000 in 6 months just paying bills. Mm-hmm. And so at this rock bottom, my fiance, who we're now married to, so she's awesome. She stuck with me. She said one day, she just said, sweetheart, I hate seeing you like this. And I I can't, I don't know what to do. I can't help you. Maybe you should reach out and get some advice from one of your friends. You've got some really smart, business savvy friends. Why don't you call them? Because Tara, because I was a success coach, as you might imagine, kind of messed with my identity to tell anyone that I was failing, that I was right, like that I'm a mess, especially because I needed more clients. So in my head, I'm like, well, wait, what do? I tell people I'm failing miserably. Do you know anyone that needs a success coach?
Exactly.
Right? You know, that can relate to what they're going through. Like, I don't know, what's my angle?
Yeah.
And so,
I know. So that makes sense why this was more difficult than the car crash. Because you're like, now my identity is shattered.
And there was no help. And it kept getting worse. Like the car accident, it could only get better, right? Like I'm in a hospital. Time will heal my body. It will heal my brain. And I was surrounded by experts that were waiting and love, family, friends, waiting on me hand and I was showered with love and encouragement. When the economy crashed, right, my fiance was encouraging, but there was no one there to help me, figure this out. So I take now my wife, Ursula, I take her advice. I call one of my best friends, John Berghoff, brilliant business mind. And I said, John, are you sitting down? I need you for like 10 minutes, focused attention, man. He said, yeah, what's going on? And I spill my heart out to him, and he says, are you exercising every day? And I go, what the hell does that have to do with anything I just told you? Right? And I'm starting to picture him like playing on the other end of the phone, not paying attention. And long story short, he says, Hal, you've got to run every day. Go out every morning, go for a jog, go for a run, and bring an audiobook. Get your blood and oxygen flowing, release endorphins. You'll think clearer, you'll feel better, and listen to a business audiobook every day, and you'll figure this out. You'll turn it around. I know you can. You're a smart guy, but not if you're sitting at home every day, just grinding, going through the motions. So I took his advice. The next morning I went for a run, and on that run I heard a quote that changed my entire life, and it was Jim Rohn. He said, your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development, because success is something you attract by the person you become.
That's my favorite in your book as well.
Is it? And
absolutely.
Tara, in that moment, I realized I'm not dedicating time every day to my personal development. Therefore, I'm not becoming the person that I need to be that can create the levels of success that I want. And I ran home with this epiphany. I thought, I'm going to go on Google. I'm going to figure out what are the best of the best in personal development practices known to man, and I'm going to do them every morning. And I had this list of 6. I went to bed that night going, I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning. I'm not just going to do 1 or 2 of them. I'm going to do all 6 of them. Because as I was reading and researching, I was finding some of the world's most successful people that swear by any one of these. So I thought, if I combine all of them, that would be like, turbocharging my personal development. Yeah. And I hated where I was at. I wanted to go to the next level fast. So I woke up the next morning, went through all 6 practices, and it's kind of one of those, the rest is history, right? Less than 2 months later of doing my morning routine, it wasn't called the Miracle Morning. It wasn't going to be a book, right? It was none of that. It was just my own attempt to turn it around. Within less than 2 months, I had almost tripled my income, more than doubled it, almost tripled it. Went from being in the worst shape of my life physically, having never run more than a mile at a time, to, as you mentioned in the introduction, I committed to run a 52-mile ultramarathon that I completed 5 months later. And maybe most importantly, mentally and emotionally, having gone from being depressed, it didn't even take 2 months. It was that morning I felt confident, inspired, optimistic for the first time. I thought, if I feel this way every day, and I have this much confidence, this much clarity, at 6 o'clock in the morning, it's only a matter of time before my outer world reflects my inner world. And again, less than 2 months later, I started calling it my miracle morning, right? My miracle morning.
I love it.
And then I told it to a coaching client. She told it to a friend. I got amazing feedback. And I thought, once again, I have a responsibility to share this with other people. And now it's grown. I never imagined people in India, Japan, Sweden, Netherlands, Australia, like around the world are doing the Miracle Morning, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing. It's like this movement, if you will.
Oh, it is. I love it how you said it's not a movement, it's an awakening.
Yes. Yeah.
What I think was really cool is what you said that, I had heard this before, but it was that morning that I actually chose to get up and do it. And I felt it in my body. I could feel immediately how great it felt. So I know a lot of times we hear things, we're like, yeah. It's almost like it goes on deaf ears.
Yeah.
And then one day, it reminds me of the parable of the sower, right? It's like that one day when it falls on good ground and you're able to really see clearly. Yeah. But your way in was through the experience, through your body, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. And another quote that I absolutely love is from Kevin Bracey. If you want your life to be different, you have to be willing to do something different first.
Yes.
And I just wanted to bring that up because it reminds me a lot about the definition of insanity, right? It's continuing to do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And you're like, no, you have to change what you're doing to get a different result. And that's really what I think your message really is all about, right?
Yeah. Well, there was a defining moment, that quote, literally, if it wasn't for that, there's so many things, right? I take credit for little to nothing, right? I guess I wrote the book, but everything, it was really just putting it all the pieces together, everything that has ever come into my life, right? I just kind of channeled it into that book. But that first morning, or that actually the day before my first miracle morning, when I was considering it, I'm not a morning person. And that's actually probably very important for anybody watching or listening that's not a morning person. That might be the biggest thing the Miracle Morning has done, is there's this chapter in there that teaches you how to become a morning person and beat the snooze button, even if you've never been able to your entire life. And I think we have tens of thousands of people around the world that are like, I didn't even know if I could do it. I wasn't a morning person. And it's almost like within a week, you're a morning person, And so for me, when I was considering waking up an hour earlier, in the Miracle Morning, it could be waking up, 10 minutes earlier, 30 minutes, an hour. For me, I was going to do an hour my first day. I thought, I can't get up at 5 o'clock in the morning because I woke up at 6 normally. And then I heard Kevin's voice in my head. If you want your life to be different, you have to be willing to do something different first. And I was like, son of a, okay, fine, I'll try it. I'll get up an hour earlier. And then the rest is history.
Well, I loved what you said, though, in the book about, you wrote, when the alarm clock goes off and we hit the snooze button, we are actually programming our subconscious mind to say that we're not going to follow through with things that we had planned.
Yes.
So I was thinking to myself, wow, I do that. I do that a lot. It just got me thinking about my alarm clock a bit more seriously. I was like,
absolutely.
Wow, is this what I'm really telling the world? That's not what I want to be telling the world.
Yeah.
So I definitely do all the principles. I put the alarm clock, my phone across the room. I have to get up. I get my body moving. But one thing I wanted to talk about was mediocrity, because you gave me some really scary statistics in the book. Yeah. And you talked about the top 5%, obesity, prescription drugs, financials. So how does one overcome a life of mediocrity?
Yeah, so I think that, the chapter you're referring to is probably my favorite chapter in the book. I was asked once, what's my favorite chapter? And it's called the 95% reality check. And I gave it as a keynote initially at a conference once, and people loved it. And then I decided to that needs to be in the book. And the reality check is this, that you can measure it a lot of different ways. According to the Social Security Administration, at the end, when people are ready to retire, only 5% of society is financially free. The other 95% are dependent on the government, relatives, right, et cetera. That was one measure. But you can just look at common sense and go, look, the average person in America, do they have the ideal relationship, right? Well, the divorce rate says at least more than half of people, they end in divorce. So but I would imagine that the 48% or 46% that stay together, if you actually measure the quality, just because they're not getting a divorce doesn't mean they're happy, doesn't mean they're not fighting every day, doesn't mean there's not a lot of friction. So, and you look at the obesity epidemic, you look at the amount of prescription medication for anxiety and depression. The average person in America is struggling. And I really think that's like a synonym for average in America is struggle, right? Average struggle, because people are struggling. Why is 5 Hour Energy a $1 billion company? because people are struggling to get through the day, right? So the 95% reality check is that you have to realize if we continue to think and live like everybody else, we're going to end up living a life of mediocrity and struggle like everybody else. And if we want to live the life that every single one of us want to live, define it however you want. I call it an extraordinary life, right? Life of freedom, where you get to do what you want, when you want, with whoever you want. You have to separate yourself from the 95%. You have to study the 5% in every area. In health and nutrition, study the 5%. You know, stop eating fast food. Start eating a plant-based diet. Start eating, you know, if you're going to eat meat, make sure it's grass-fed and cage-free. I mean, on and on, right? You know, your finances. If you were to ask the average person that, let's say, that was getting a divorce, how many books did you and your significant other or your ex-significant other, how many books did you read together on having an amazing marriage in the last 6 months of your marriage? What would they usually say, Tara? What do you think?
I would say 0.
Zero, right? Most people, yeah. I mean, usually it's 0. The average person goes, we don't read books. What are you talking about, right? So you go, well, wait. So on a scale of 1 to 10, you want a level 10 marriage, but your level of knowledge and skill in having a level 10 marriage is like at a 2. There's the disconnect. And that's true in every area of life, finances, you name it. We all want level 10 success in our health, our happiness, our energy, you name it. But if our level of personal development is below that, and for most of us it's a 2 or a 3 or a 4, that's the disconnect. And that's the essence of the Miracle Morning, is it's dedicating time every day to becoming a level 10 person in every area so you can have level 10 success in every single area of your life. And to me, and it's a lifelong journey. You know, you never get to level 10, but you can really quickly, you can read a few books and go from a 2 to like a 7. You know,
true. If you're reading the right
one
books.
book. You could read one book. You could read one book on finances or health. If you apply it, you can go from a 2 to an 8, or that quickly. So I don't know if I answered your question, but
yeah, no, you absolutely did. If you could, just for my ears as well, I'd love to know if you recommend a finance book.
Yes, I'm reading it right now. Money, Tony Robbins' new book, Money.
Yeah. Okay.
Really good. And it's and here's what you need to do though. This is true for everything. You can't just read a book. If you read a book, well, first of all, when you read a book, I say this in the beginning of the Miracle Morning, right? Make sure you have a pen. Make sure you're underlining and circling and writing in the margins anything that you ever want to come back to. You've got to. Like, here's a great example. The book Money by Tony Robbins that I just recommended, it's a 650-page book.
I know.
I'm never going to go back and read it again. But here's what happened. I picked it up a few months ago. I started reading it. I got like 200 pages in. And then my focus shifted, and I had to learn how to do something for a project I was working on. So I put that book down, and I picked up another book, and I read it, I reviewed it, I went through it. Well, I just went back to the book, Tony's book, because I really want to master it this year. And here's the thing. I already forgot 90% of it, right, which we do. If I would have had to go back and read those 200 pages, it would have taken me another month or 2, right? But because I take notes and margins, I was able to reread those 200 pages, the parts that I had underlined that I needed to reread, in literally an hour. So in 1 hour, I got back all of what I had already gone through. And most importantly, in my phone, I have an affirmation that I read every day. And it has a summary now from Tony Robbins' book, all of the action steps. So every book you read, imagine if you had a note that everything you're committed to doing. You might not be able to write down everything that you're learning. I mean, you could, but it'd be long. But what are you actually going to do? Because if you don't change your behavior, nothing changes, right? And I think that's what makes the Miracle Morning so effective. It's a behavior change. It's not just think differently. It's wake up every day and do something that literally guarantees you become a better version of who you were when you went to bed the night before. And if every day you become a better version of yourself, your success it's inevitable. You're eventually going to get to new levels that you've never experienced before.
I love it. I love it. Let's talk a little bit about lifesavers. I don't know how much you want to go into it, because I know you want the listeners to read the book, but you do have 6 practices.
I'll share. Yeah.
Yeah, please.
So lifesavers, the word savers is an acronym for those of you listening. My first day when I was considering the Miracle Morning, I wrote down a list of these 6 practices. And at first I got discouraged, Tara, because I had heard of all of them before. And our society, we're kind of conditioned, like, I want what's new. I want an app for that. I want, right? Like, I want quick, easy, short. And these 6 practices were like, successful people have been doing them since before you and I were born, right? Before our parents were born. And at first I almost dismissed them. And then I went, wait a minute. Just because I know these, I've heard of them, and maybe I've tried a few of them, that doesn't mean anything. I'm not doing them every day. And at first I thought, I'm going to pick the 1 or 2 that are the most effective, that the most successful people in the world, the ones that'll change my life the fastest. And then that's when it hit me. Wait a minute. Rather than pick 1 or 2, because I was doing more research online and trying to figure out which of these is the best.
Yeah.
I couldn't.
I wanted a shortcut.
Yeah, depending on who you talk to, right? Yeah. One person, Will Smith swears by affirmations. Jim Carrey, he attributes his success to visualization, right? Ray Dalio, the founder of the largest hedge fund in the world, he's a billionaire. He attributes his success to meditation. So does Russell Simmons. So I'm like, none of them are the best. They're all equally the best. And I went, what if I did all of them? So I'll run through these real quick, and then I'll explain how they're taught in the Miracle Morning. So the word SAVERS, again, is the acronym for the 6 practices. The first S is for silence. Starting your day, not with chaos, not waiting till the last minute to get out of bed, hitting the snooze button, rushing out the door, right? That's how most people start. It's actually having time to sit down, anywhere from 1 minute to 10, and meditate or pray. I thought meditation was strictly a spiritual practice, and so I started doing research. And I found this article, Fortune 500 CEOs that meditate. And I was curious, and I read it. They weren't meditating necessarily to be closer to God. They were meditating because of the scientific, physical, mental, intellectual benefits that are proven from meditation. Lowering your stress, increasing your focus, your cognitive ability in many different ways, right? So meditation. So silence incorporates meditation or prayer, whichever you choose. I combine both. The A is for affirmations. Written statements that articulate what you want, why you want it, and who you're committed to being or what you're committed to doing to guarantee that you move in that direction. And you program your subconscious every day with what you want and what you're going to do to achieve it. And it just shifts the way that you think. V is for visualization. Visualizing not only what you want so you believe it when you see it, but visualizing yourself taking the daily action to make it a reality that's so compelling. Your vision should be so compelling, not just for the end result, but for the daily action, that you have no choice but to open your eyes and lace up your running shoes because you saw yourself on that run. Or start typing your book because you saw yourself typing the words. Or, get the phone and start calling prospects because you saw yourself doing that with confidence, with momentum. The E is for exercise. I'm not saying that you need to stop going to the gym in the afternoon or evening or whatever you do, or even in the morning. I'm saying that the benefits of getting blood and oxygen to your brain first thing in the morning, getting your heart rate up, moving your body are so profound, you can't wait on those. And I'm only talking 5 to 10 minutes of exercise during your Miracle Morning. The R is for reading. And that's not like 50 Shades of Grey, right, or The Hobbit or whatever, but reading books, like I talked about earlier. You could read one book and take your level of knowledge to improve an area of your life from a 2 to an 8, like that. And then last but not least, the final S is for scribing. And that's essentially a fancy word for writing. So for me, it's journaling. I use an app on my phone called 5-Minute Journal. There's a lot. You can journal, you can write out your goals, et cetera, et cetera. My favorite journal is 5-Minute Journal. I have the hardcover version for in the evening in my bedroom, and then I have the app on my phone because I travel a lot. So those are the savers, and you can find people that swear by any one of those. I think what made the Miracle Morning so profound is, number one, you did all of them, and number two, it organized them in a really simple way. There was a structure where people could grasp it. Exactly. And then last but not least, I think, is that the way that I teach all of those, like affirmations, visualization, things that a lot of people have tried and haven't really gotten results from, so they've kind of dismissed them. For me, I'm very results oriented. So like, here's an example. Affirmations. A popular affirmation, I'll kind of paraphrase it. You've probably heard this before, I'm sure you have. It's something along the lines of money flows to me effortlessly in abundance. Like, what the hell is that? If money flows to me effortlessly, yeah, that makes me feel good, but it doesn't create the action that will produce the money or attract the money that I want. It has the opposite effect. If it flows to me effortlessly, I'm going to sit back and I'm going to wait. Right? So my affirmations, and same with the visualization, they're very action-oriented, very results-oriented. I think that's the thing about the Miracle Morning that made it different too, is people are like, wow, this is the first time I've ever done affirmations where I follow the steps in the book. My affirmations actually work. They actually not just like make me feel good, they get me to do the thing today that I have to do that will create that result that I want down the road.
So give me an example of your version of the money affirmation.
Got it. So it's what I want. I mean, the basic premise, what I want, why I want it, what's holding me back, or what could hold me back, which is really important because often we don't include that in our affirmation, what might hold us back. And then guess what? Because we're not aware of it, it holds us back, right? We're not prepared for it. So what I want, why I want it, what might hold me back, and what I'm committed to doing to achieve it. So for example, and I'll use an example of like when I was in sales, okay? So what I want, I'm committed to selling $200,000 of Cutco this year. I'll use my affirmation from my last year in sales. Why? Because it will not, and there can be more than one why, right? Because it will not only earn me $100,000 in income, but more importantly, it will enable me to become the person that I need to be to create everything else I want for my life. To me, that's always the biggest why for any big goal we go after. Who are you going to become? If you achieve that goal, you will have had to tap into your discipline and your focus and your commitment, right? All of those things. So I'm committed to sell X amount, to earn this amount and become the person I need to be. And then what might prevent me is not making my 20 phone calls every day, right? Because that's the only thing that can stop me. If I make my phone calls every day, my success is inevitable. So then I go into what I'm committed to do is make 10 calls every morning from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. and 10 calls every evening from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. every day, no matter what. Now that's an affirmation. Every day I'm reinforcing the goal and what I want. I'm reinforcing emotionally why is it so important to me. I'm focusing on what could stop me, so I'm aware of that, and then I'm reinforcing my commitment to do specifically what I'm going to do, the duration I'm going to do it, and the frequency that I'm going to do it at. So all of that, and that's how I would do an affirmation.
That's amazing. That is so focused, so articulate. I can't wait to do mine for this week.
There you go.
Now, you also talk about the pies, which I call it feeding your spirit, mind, and body. And it's just physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual. And that is just kind of how you encapsulate the lifesavers, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of just the idea of becoming versus doing. Meaning most people were taught to focus on doing things to achieve. And so most people focus on doing more. They think they have to do more to achieve more. And that often people, we all, I mean, a lot of us see ourselves as lazy. But people are surprised when I say, I see myself as lazy because I don't want to do a lot of the stuff I do. That's what, I guess lazy means you do the things anyway. For me, I feel lazy because I'm like, I don't want to do this today. I don't want to go to the gym. I don't want to. So there's this lazy part of me. But the idea is that we often don't even attempt to do more because our identity, we don't see ourselves as disciplined enough to do more. And that we give up before we even start. And what I realized is that when you focus not so much on doing more, but on becoming more, you can achieve more by doing even less.
I love that. I think one of the most important principles in the book is forming new positive habits. So how long do you think that it takes to form a new habit?
So 30 days essentially is, there's a lot of different science on this. There's my favorite book, The One Thing. I think they say 66 days. The most popular myth, which was originated in the book Psycho-Cybernetics back in, the 60s, or I don't know when the book came out, by Maxwell Maltz, which was the 21 days. That's the most popular. personally, I believe in the mind-body connection. So I almost think that you can develop a habit. If you believe it takes 21 days and you apply a strategy, I think you can do it in 21 days. I found that 30 days was most effective for me. And there's 3 10-day phases. And by being aware of these, it's a game changer. Phase number 1, days 1 through 10, are what I call the unbearable phase. Mm-hmm. That's where you're like, I don't want to wake up, or I don't want to quit smoking, or I don't want to stop drinking coffee. Like, I need, right? It's really unbearable because psychologically and even physically, you're like addicted to your behavior. Mm-hmm. The first 10 days are unbearable, but here's the question, Tara. If you know something's going to change your life, can you do anything for 10 days, even if it's hard?
Of course.
Of course, right? If you know. But here's the problem. People don't know that it's a limited phase. So they go, they're on day 4 or day 6, and they're like, oh my gosh, it's not getting any easier. And they just throw in the towel. They're like, forget it, right? They're like, whoa, yeah. I lost the earphone. They give up. Yeah. So what happens is, if you know, okay, the first 10 days are unbearable, I know that going in, so on day 6, you're like, I'm supposed to feel this way. On day 9, you're like, I'm supposed to feel this way. The second phase, days 11 through 20, are what I call the uncomfortable phase. And that's where it's still no picnic, but it's no longer unbearable where you're like, I hate it. You're just like, I'm still not really loving it yet, like it's kind of uncomfortable. But what happens is you understand that the third phase is where the magic happens, or where the miracle happens in this case, right? Days 21 through 30 is what I call unstoppable. And here's what happens. The first 10 days, like when I was putting on the habit of running, when I was implementing that, first 10 days, my self-talk is like, oh my God, I hate this. Oh, my body aches. My hips ache. I'm so sore. It's so boring, right? Mm-hmm. Days 11 through 20, it wasn't that bad, but it was still like, oh man, I don't really like running. Is this going to change? Somewhere around day 22, 23, I woke up in the morning and unconsciously, I laced up my running shoes and I was like, I can't wait to go running. Mm. And it hit me as I left the front door excited. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. I'm excited to run right now. I'm not resisting this at all. And that's why I call it the unstoppable phase, and it might happen for some people on day 18, it might happen day 28. It just depends on you, depends on how long you've been resisting it, how challenging the new habit is. But when you hit that day where you wake up and you're excited to do whatever it is that you've been unbearable and uncomfortable and resisting, you become unstoppable. Because, Tara, is it hard to do something that you're looking forward to?
No.
Of course not. Right? So all of a sudden you're like, wow. And what happens is there's this shift in identity where you go, I'm a runner, or I'm an early riser. Like, it literally changes who you are as a person. Again, it's who you become, not what you're doing. It's who you become. But what's ironic is who you're becoming is so much more important than what you're doing. Yet it's what you're doing that is determining who you're becoming. So that's kind of the chicken before the egg sort of thing.
I love that. It's so true, though. Yeah. Now, tell me a little about the Miracle Morning 30-Day Habit Mastery, because that is super cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially it's applying that to the Miracle Morning, and then in the book there is a downloadable 30-day challenge tracker where you go through, because it's important to develop your what and your why, right? So before you start the Miracle Morning, it's good to be like, okay, well, what am I really working towards? Like, I don't want to just wake up early to wake up early, right? And if I'm waking up early to become a better version of myself, to what end, right? Like, what is that? So there's this 30-day challenge, tracker, fast start tracker, where you go through the process of really increasing your clarity and gaining clarity on what do you want, and not in just one area, but in 10 areas of your life. You do a wheel of life, and you get really clear on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you in your health? Where are you in your relationships? Where are you in your finances? You're on and on and on. You get clear on where you are, then you set goals accordingly to where do I want to be in each of these areas to get closer to a level 10. Then there's a tracking sheet. You've got a 30-day tracker. Every day you get to mark your progress. So it's a pretty comprehensive process to take someone through their first 30 days. And if you go into the Miracle Morning community on Facebook, right, then you quickly find that people are, they're on day like 600, 800, 1,000, it's pretty wild.
I love it. And now, is this the same as the 30-day life transformation challenge, or is that
Yes,
different?
yes. That's the
Okay.
same. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's what it's called. Yes.
It's amazing. And what I think is really cool is that Hal has created really clever ways to customize the Miracle Morning for really busy people. So if you have really crazy schedules and you're not allowed to be up at 6, like say you work really late, you can still get the principles in the book, right? Because the book
Yep.
is really for everybody. So can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that? How you
So there's a chapter in the book called the 6 Minute Miracle Morning, and it wasn't written like it wasn't something that I was writing the book and I put in there. It was something that I just like everything I do is like I apply it and then I'm like I need to share this. So what happened was there were a lot of days like I haven't like most people kind of an all or nothing mentality, right? And for me, I was used to doing a 1 hour miracle morning. So there were a lot of days where if I woke up with any less than an hour, I didn't do it, you know? And then one day I woke up and I did a 30-minute version. And that was like, wow, this is just as good as the hour-long version pretty much, right? But then it was all or nothing where if I didn't have 30 minutes, I didn't do it. And one day I went, what if I did a 6-minute miracle morning? Because like I woke up and I had 15 minutes before I had to get ready. I thought, what if there's 6 lifesavers, right? 6 practices. What if I do 1 minute each, really focused, really present? And so I went through and I did 1 minute of meditation and kind of prayer, and I got centered. I pulled out my affirmations. It really, they were only like, page long. It really only took a minute to read through them, right? That reminded me of what I was focused on, what I wanted, why I wanted, what I needed to do. I visualized for a minute. I go through all the practices. And here's the crazy thing. It was 1/10 of the time that I'm used to, right? Normally 60 minutes. I did it in 6. But it wasn't 1/10 of the benefit, Tara. It was like 70 to 80% of the benefit. And I realized, wow, there are not too many things in life that you could do, and you do 1/10 of the time and get 80% of the benefit, right? That you can't exercise for 6 minutes and get 80% of an hour's worth of benefit. You can't, right? So it's really profound, and that's why I put it in the book. And it's really scalable. People can do it in the morning. There's even in the book, I talk about the miracle evening, the miracle afternoon. What if you're a shift worker? What if you're working from 2 a.m. to noon or, whatever, right? How you can do a miracle morning? Well, you would do a miracle afternoon, right? Or miracle evening. So, yeah.
I love it. So you've created an amazing community with the Miracle Morning. So please tell listeners how they can join.
Just go to facebook.com. And it is, I'm in awe of our community. Like when I started it, there were like, I put like 20 people in it, and now we have like 100 people a day asked to join from all over the world. I mean, it's crazy.
I know.
And we're almost at actually we're probably at, as of yesterday, we're like 13,950 members. So it's probably at 14,000 now. But yeah, so go to Facebook, and you have to make sure when you type in the Miracle Morning community, the word community's in there, because there is a Miracle Morning fan page, but there's not much engagement there.
Yeah.
And then if you want to put in your show notes, the direct URL to go there is mytmmcommunity.com. So mytmmcommunity.com takes you right to the Facebook page. And yeah, come check it out. Even before you read the book, it's a great place to go in, and you start to see how people are changing their lives, and it really encourages you as to what could happen for you.
And you also have amazing freebies that you offer. So tell the listeners where they can go to get their superfood smoothie recipe, the free sample, the crash course.
Yeah. So there's 2 places. If you haven't read the Miracle Morning and you want to get the first few chapters for free, obviously I encourage everyone, go buy the book on Amazon. You won't regret it. But if you're like, Hal, money's so tight right now, like my wife would kill me if I spent an extra $15. I've been there, so I'm sensitive to that. You can go to miraclemorning.com, and that's where you get the first few chapters of the book free. You get a 15-minute video training and a 60-minute audio training for free. That's all at miraclemorning.com. And then once you've read the book or you're reading it and you want to access all the like bonuses, like the 30-day life transformation challenge that we talked about, all of that is at tmmbook.com. So like the Miracle Morning book, tmmbook.com.
Awesome. Okay, well, I'm definitely doing it. So I'm just going to put this out there for the Miracle Morning 30-Day Life Transformation Challenge. So if anyone who is listening or watching wants to be my accountability partner,
Nice.
please reach out to me via my website at taramagalski.com because I'm
Nice.
ready to really do this. But what's the best way for anyone interested in coaching with you, booking you for a speaking engagement, needs help writing a book? What's the best way for them to reach you?
You can contact me through my website, which is just myname.com, Hal Elrod, HALELROD.com.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for being my guest today. And everyone who's listening, I have to tell you, I read this book, like I said, 4 times, and it has definitely changed my life. And I'm super excited to do the challenge. So thank you again for taking the time today.
Thank you, Tara. I appreciate you. And everybody that watched or listened, thanks for tuning in. And I hope you got some value today. I appreciate you.
Thank you for tuning in, and make sure you subscribe to this channel to get your weekly fix for all you spiritual gangsters. Any questions or comments, go to my site at taramagalski.com. Drop me a note. I'd love to hear from you. And stay tuned for next week. I got the good stuff.